Hey there, I'm Marcus Lippincott, and this is my persuasive speech on why you should play Dungeons and Dragons. Let's go ahead and get started. So, I first started playing D&D back in 2016 when I first started college. Funny enough, I'm back in college. But yeah, ever since then, it's had like a death grip on my just attention span in life, but in like a good way. I think it's taught me a lot of ways to just funnel like creativity and stuff. It's just hard for me not to think about it. I just love it. I've always loved different fictional media. It's like Lord of the Rings, awesome. Everybody should love that. And other just fantasy things in general, like sci-fi, other genres. I've heard some D&D horror stories as well, whether it was like the Satanic Panic stuff back in the 1980s, or even stuff more current day where you have like weird engagements with like players who are not super into new players. Like I don't know, I'm sure y'all have probably experienced like weird people at like GameStops or something. It's kind of like in a similar way, just people you don't really want to interact with, unfortunately. But aside from that, I had a buddy convince me back in college as well to also just try it out and give it a shot. And I believe I met my favorite D&D group that I've ever played with. It was great. So yeah, I think everyone should try it. I don't believe any game's quite like it. It's a little different. The creativity that you can have in this game is just phenomenal. Like there's almost nothing like it, and it's just been my favorite game to play with close friends. So Dungeons and Dragons and its misunderstandings. So it started off as an old school war game. I believe it got released in 1974, and it was adapted just like war style, and then turned into more of a fantasy, like dungeon crawling kind of game, tabletop game. And then around 1979, there was a teenager that went missing at Michigan State University. And after that, it was just, it turned from like this missing teenager case to this weird, like underground tunnel, satanic cultist conspiracy. Just because there was like drawings in his room of like tunnels, most likely dungeons that no one had really seen before. And I think it just kind of threw everyone into like a craze or hysteria. So yeah, kind of weird. But it's also had some more recent social backlashes. Back in like 2020, when COVID-19 was popping off, D&D was a good reason for people to still like connect and play games with people, while also not being able to like interact with them physically, because you could play it online through like Discord or Roll20 or other applications. So you have these like new sets of people who are like super eager to play the game, seeing these like weird pre-existing issues from like the 70s all the way even to like the early 2000s that kind of just pre-existed through, whether it was like slightly misogynistic like art depictions or slightly racist themes with the fantasy elements potentially being based off of like real life people. It's just things you don't really want to interact with, as well as like the weird players before that I mentioned, the kind of people you would probably see at like Magic the Gathering tournaments. Slight joke, but they're pretty weird sometimes. So yeah, aside from these historical backlashes, it was able to more recently, like in the 2020s, become more of a cultural icon. So the brighter future of D&D, pop culture icon since 2020. There's been so many podcasts like Dimension 20 and Roll 20 or Critical Role, I mean, that were able to just show like these fantastic voice actors and storytellers and how they're able to creatively like make these insane like stories that are, there's almost like nothing like it. Like media doesn't quite hit it like that. There's also a newer blockbuster movie with fantastic visuals, representation for the new age, because a lot of the older movies and shows were like really bad and weird. But this one was actually pretty funny, and I think it represents like almost some of the insanity it comes to like playing D&D. There's also newer applications for therapy with trauma and neurodivergent patients slash students. But yeah, I think the way that D&D has like many approaches to everything, and you can kind of approach it however you want, as well as like when you make characters, you're able to truly make this completely unique character and interact with the environment in your own way. I think it helps a lot of people, whether it's like with social anxiety, autism, or even just people trying to combat trauma through different mediums. Also, some of the team building exercises can kind of correlate with D&D, because if you ever played team building exercises, you have to work with people and stuff and like combat a goal together in an organized fashion. Dungeons and Dragons is kind of the same way, just in like a more nerdy way. And then new interesting ways of learning through, you're able to kind of trick people into learning by making it more of a fun application of like a game, like a board game almost. And it tricks people into learning things that they normally wouldn't be super interested in. So yeah, I think it's just a new age way of just combating some of these things. So we've learned some interesting ways to implement D&D. Now it's time to play. I think you should give it a shot. Aside from like the new applications we talked about before, I think you should give it a shot. Media influences D&D in almost so many ways. We talked about Lord of the Rings earlier, inspired D&D with the fantasy races in Fantastical World. Yeah, we also just have any kind of fantasy game like Elder Scrolls or book series has probably been inspired by D&D or Lord of the Rings, and it all kind of comes together in this little sphere of influence. And there's just many immediate ways to get into D&D. If you just want to watch it instead of play it, there's so many podcasts. We talked about Critical Role, Dimension 20, and then so many other people that are just so funny and just show you weird creativity that you've never seen before. There's also free content. You don't have to buy books. There's certain you can download more basic rule sets that you can kind of read as you play, and that's how I learned, I think, for the most part in person. You can play it your own way. You can play it casually, more laid back, have a couple beers and some snacks and some buddies on a Friday, or you can play it more seriously, like your acting career is dependent on it. Yeah. D&D is my all-time favorite game. No other media feels like that way to me. It gives me that kind of experience of creativity that you can express. Hopefully I was able to give you some of that curiosity through this. But yeah, this is my conclusion. We discussed some of the controversial backgrounds and different new applications as of recently. I learned a couple new things. Hopefully you're able to learn something as well. Even if you don't intend to play it, hopefully you were able to at least learn something or be intrigued by this speech. You really should try it with some coworkers or close friends though. It's not as demonic as history is depicted. There are even positive traits outside of it being just a fun hobby. Yeah, it changed my life. I've met some of the best people in my life through playing this game. If you play it, I hope the same experience is for you. Even if you don't play it, I do appreciate you watching this video, and yeah, appreciate it.